listening to SFP-NOW.
Hello and welcome to another exciting pulpy episode of SFP Now. As you recall, last month we had David Avallone of Dynamite Publishing, who was on to talk about his Doc Savage and the Ring of Fire comic. This week we have Andrew Mark Sewell, the big kahuna, the head cheese over at B7 Media, the company that's been producing the fantastic Dan Dare audio adventures which have been released through Big Finish. So without further ado, we're just going to bring Andrew Mark Sewell on. Hello, welcome to another Sci-Fi Pulse interview. With us this week we have Andrew Mark Sewell, who's the creative executive producer over at B7 Media, who've been doing some great stuff with Dan Dare, haven't they? Hi Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi Ian, it's a pleasure to be here, thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming, it's been, it's great having you on. The first question I got for you really is I actually read from your website that you kind of started with the BBC and you was with them for quite a long time. What did you do for them?
Oh goodness, that's probably quite a long answer. Yeah, I did start at the BBC way back in the 80s. And started off as everybody does in the business as a runner. Actually, before that, I started off with what was called a public liaison clerk in BBC Radio Continuing Education. So I used to, all the educational programmes, when people wrote in for the supporting notes, I used to send them out. So I was a glorified postman. But that gave me a taste for radio, if you like. Mm-hmm. And then I went into TV and programme finance, and then got into production. And then slowly crawled my way up the slippery pole. Having left the BBC a couple of times, I went back, and then my last job there was creative director at BBC Worldwide, which is the commercial arm of the BBC. So I've held quite a wide and varied selection of roles there.
All sounds very fast-paced and stressful.
Well, it didn't feel very fast-paced at the time, because I think overall, at the BBC I was there for about 15 years off and on. So, yeah, I mean, it was the wonderful thing about the BBC was that you got in there at an early age. It was a fantastic training ground for the industry, and it doesn't really exist now in the same way. You could do what was called attachments. So you might be working in one department or one division of the BBC, and you could get an attachment into another, and that gave you the chance to sort of broaden and develop your skill set. That gave you other opportunities. So I have a lot of fondness for my time at the BBC. But I think I prefer being freelance now. Yeah, so bit older, wiser, and longer in the tooth, or whatever. Mm-hmm.
So it was like an ongoing apprenticeship you had there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of putting it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, they say life is a continual education, and certainly working at the BBC was certainly an education, but a very valuable one. It equipped me to be, I think, a half decent producer and director that I am now, allegedly. Cool.
How did you go from that to forming B7 Media?
Well, B7 kind of came out of. I mean, I was at BBC Worldwide at the time, and I was looking to getting back into more active production, and so the first project that came along that we were looking to develop was Blake 7, which we managed to negotiate the underlying rights with the nation state. And but to do that, I had to leave the BBC because it would have been a conflict of interest to be having my role there and doing that. So so I decided to, with my then partner at the time, Simon Moorhead, who's produced things like Mirror Mask, with Dave McKean, feature film, and most recently Luna, and various other things. But Simon and I had known each other from way back in days of drama when he was a location manager and I was a finance clerk. So we set up B7. We were trying to think of a name. So we thought, well, these are the first rights. It's Blake 7. Let's call ourselves B7. And that's how B7 was born. But what we wanted to do was do original drama for different platforms. And as I say, Blake 7 was our first project that we started off with.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys have any input into the Big Finish Blake 7 range by any chance?
Yeah, no, very definitely. So the first thing we did with Blake 7, we got very frustrated because the TV deal wasn't happening, and we had various development deals going on, and we just decided we wanted to do something with Blake 7. So given we both love radio, that's when we did the remake of Blake 7, where we had a totally new cast. The logic being that even though it was radio, the characters are meant to be in their 20s or early 30s, and we wanted to just tackle the show from a totally fresh perspective, and we decided to go with a totally new cast. So Roger Blake was played by Derek Rydell, and Avon by Colin Salmon, and Sewell by Daniela Nardini from This Life. And that, although the hardcore Blake 7 fans were a bit upset with us for doing that, it did find a huge audience, and it did get a lot of really nice reviews, and certainly it acted as a great way to talk to the TV execs in terms of why we thought Blake 7 would work well as a remade TV show. But then we kind of done that for a while, and we were then very, very deep in the TV development with Sky, and then with the Sci-Fi Channel. And Jason, who runs Big Finish, and I have known each other for a very long time, and he'd wanted to do Blake 7, but using the original cast, or at least the surviving members of the original cast. And so we then licensed those rights to Big Finish to do that. And I mean, in terms of our involvement, it was a case of approving the storylines, but we very much then let Big Finish go off and make them, and they did a splendid job. And so you got the best of both worlds. You got a new Blake 7 with a new cast, and you got the old Blake 7 with the original cast.
Mm-hmm. But still no TV show.
Unfortunately, no. And maybe one day it will happen. I mean, we've stepped away from it now. We've got other fish to fry, as they say. We've got other projects. There comes a point that after 3 development deals with different broadcasters and it not happening, it's you pass the torch on to someone else to try and do it. I mean, why didn't it happen? I mean, Sky very nearly happened, but the director of programs, who was at the point of commissioning, left the broadcaster and was replaced by someone who didn't like sci-fi. And then there's various other tales. Maybe one day we'll write a book about the development hell of Blake 7.
That'd be an interesting read, actually.
It would be a sobering read, if nothing else. Yes.
I mean, I've got to admit, I got really, really worried when Sci-Fi was developing it. So I kind of
really, why was that?
I don't know really. It's kind of like with it being an American sort of thing, and with Blake 7 being so British, I kind of thought it might take the edginess away from the story, because Blake 7 was sort of like pretty damn dark and gritty for the time it was made.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I was very involved in all those developments. I mean, the Sky one was the pilot scripts were written by Richard Curti and Bev Doyle, who we've gone on to do other stuff with, including Dan Dare. But the sci-fi development, which was done in a partnership with Georgeville, that are currently making Sense8. You had Martin Campbell as an exec producer as well, and as he was attached as a series producer. And the scripts were stunning. I mean, they really did capture the spirit of the original and really sort of up the ante and made it a show that would work very well today. It's a great shame it didn't happen. It was a very expensive show to make, though. That's certainly a consideration. And Sci-Fi, without sort of telling tales, they certainly creatively wanted to go down a direction that Martin Campbell and us were not happy with. So it kind of derailed because of that.
Yeah, that figures. But I won't make you go down the
Please don't. I'll have nightmares tonight otherwise.
down the Young Brit Road any further than that. I mean, the thing is with Sci-Fi, they can either make something really good like like what they did with Battlestar Galactica. A lot of people enjoyed because they made it edgy and gritty.
And they didn't lose sense of what the original show was, but they made a very compelling piece of drama that would work for a modern audience. But I agree.
But I'm still very much in love with the old classic series where it's familiar and a bit cheesy and corny. I kind of like that.
I have to say I agree with you as well. I have great memories of sat watching the original Battlestar Galactica for all its faults. I think at the time when it went out, wasn't it promoted as being the most expensive science fiction series that had been produced to date, a TV science fiction series that had been produced to date, I think it was. Yeah,
it was, and ironically, it was actually more popular here in the UK and more popular in France and Europe than it was in the States.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the spin-off they did, what was it called? Galactica 80? Was that it?
Battlestar Galactica 1980.
Yeah. Best sort of a discreet line drawn under that one, I think.
As someone that's worked in radio and audio, what would you say is the power that audio drama has, which more visual drama perhaps does not?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, radio, you are quite as the listener, and also as the program maker, you're limited only by your imagination. So you can quite literally make a 150 million movie for a fraction of the cost. And I think that a lot of what Big Finish does is very similar to in terms of what we're doing as well. We certainly work with some of the same people. So, for example, Alistair Locke, sound designer, is a brilliant talent for realising and bringing to life the imagination of the writers for audio and to stimulate the audience's imagination. And you can, with radio, you can explore dramatically so much. And it's just just a very compelling medium that I've always loved, and I suppose my biggest inspiration in terms of why do I work in audio as well as working in film and TV, but I always come back to radio at some point, is because of the work of Dirk Maggs, who created these incredible audio movies from Independence Day, London, and Spider-Man. No, did he do Spider-Man? He did Superman and Batman. And then obviously most recently what he's been doing with Aliens. And he very nicely exec produced our dramatisation of Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. So he and I come from that same school of making audio drama epic sounding and immersive, but also naturalistic. We try to make it find a truth in the way that the drama plays out.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've really enjoyed, and this is something I've enjoyed in Big Finish, and again in your Dan Dare series, is the use of character beats. You often find in modern television they're in so much of a rush to get the story over and done with. Doctor Who is guilty of this, but they whiz through the story and there's barely any time for decent character beats.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, that is, it's in many ways, radio is all about character, because it's, to sell the story and to engage that audience. The audience has got to believe in the characters that are part of that story. And if you don't make those characters three-dimensional and compelling, and you're going to lose the sense of the drama, and you're going to lose your audience. So yes, I mean, the character. I mean, if you look at Dan Dare, for example, I mean, it's all about they're very real people in an extraordinary situation, but they're relatable. And if you create characters that are relatable, that you sat in your living room listening to that drama and go, oh, I could see that person meeting that person and talking to that person, but they're immersed into this extraordinary story. And I think that's one of the beauties of radio.
Mm-hmm. What was it about Dan Dare that made you feel it would be a good fit for audio?
Goodness, I suppose it goes back. It goes back initially to my father, who introduced me to the Eagle comics and the Dan Dare strips, and he used to love them as a kid himself, because obviously I'm not that old. And I love the artwork of Frank Hampson. I just love the sense of wonder. And adventure and exploration. And having done Blake 7 on audio, which is another big sci-fi epic that you have to realise, I have a real affinity with that particular genre. And also, 25 years or so before, Glenn Dearman, who's a veteran radio producer, director of the BBC, did a dramatisation of Dan Dare's Voyage to Venus. Mm-hmm. And they had planned to do more. And I was a young, ambitious lad at the BBC, and I knew my Dan Dare even back then. And we did have a conversation with Glenn. In fact, a very crazy dinner one night where we talked about the possibilities of doing another series of Dan Dare. And me and another writer called Duncan McAlpine is very well known for his comic book collection and his knowledge of comics, and is also a very experienced filmmaker or TV documentary maker. And we very nearly ended up working on it then. So for 25 years, I've had this idea of doing Dan Dare, but doing it properly. And I think it's only because of what we've done in the last 10 years in terms of our audio dramas, Blake 7 and Martian Chronicles and iRobot most recently, that I thought, yes, I know how to do Dan Dare. And actually, I felt I knew how to do it in a way that would make it relevant to an audience today. So that was our starting point.
Cool. So, it's been somewhat of a lifelong dream of yours to just do it.
Yeah, I suppose it has, really. I mean, and also I think that it just felt the right sort of time. So we started developing this about 18 months ago. We had the first writer's room where we started to kick around the ideas on how we wanted to approach it, after having secured the rights, of course. And if you think back to when Dan Dare was originally created and launched, which was in the 1950 in the original Eagle comic, it was a time of uncertainty. It was post-war. There was austerity. There was still rationing in place. People were in need of some hope, and that sense of wonder and sort of moral compass that Dan Dare represented. Mm-hmm. was a great antidote. So,
basically, a character that's going to do the right thing and politics be damned.
Yeah. He was daring, and it was romantic, and the romance of space and the exploration of space, and the wonder of whether there were worlds and civilizations that existed beyond our solar system. That sort of courage and idealism, and as I say, that spirit of adventure that personified Dan Dare. And if you think now where we are, we're again in an era of uncertainty with Brexit and Trump becoming the president, and I can't remember a time where that sense of Armageddon seems to be at the forefront of my mind with what's going on in the world, and the sort of fragility that we seem to live in terms of the politics and the and so forth. So I think time for Dan Dare representing a brave new world and a sense of hope is as an antidote to these uncertain times is good timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny actually because in a sense you actually answered the next question that I was going to segue into, which was
sorry.
do you think the geopolitical situation in the world has actually made the character more relevant, which it has, as you say.
Yeah, I think he's as relevant. I mean, obviously, we've had to move the character on so that he's relatable to an audience today. But for instance, one of the things we brought into our Dan Dare was a representation which is actually happening now, which is a corporization of space. Mm-hmm. It's not so much the government's funding space as corporates getting involved in funding space, and that we've made the Eagle Corporation a corporate entity. Which I think was a nice touch of the writers to actually do that, and I think that brings, where you've got SpaceX and you've got Branson's Virgin space initiatives. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on. I think the future of space exploration is going to be, yes, there's going to be government money, but there's also going to be an awful lot of corporate money involved in sorry, that was my emails pinging now. I need to close that down. So there's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of corporate involvement in it.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys go about casting? Was that pretty challenging, trying to find the right voices for the roles?
Casting is always challenging. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's television or film, radio. Radio probably is one of the most challenging because all you've got as the actor to sell that character, make that character come alive and believable is your voice. And there are some actors that can't do radio. I mean, they might be brilliant film actors or television actors or even theatre actors, but they can't do radio. So you have to be very mindful of that when you're casting. I certainly, when we were writing the scripts, I actually had quite a clear idea for some of the characters who I wanted to cast. So, for example, Sehuba, Dan Dare's boss, I always had Michael Cochran in my mind in terms of I thought he would be a perfect Sehuba. But Dan Dare, we started with casting Dan Dare because once you cast the actor in the role of Dan Dare, then the other actors, you're casting against type. So you've got one distinct voice for Dan Dare, and then you've got to have counterpoints to that. And we were very lucky. I had a superb casting director that we worked with, a guy called Matt Weston, who most of the time cast film. But he and I have known each other a very long time, so he tends to cast, or certainly help me cast our radio dramas. But sometimes I also have very clear ideas myself as to who I want. And then it's a question of whether their availability works for when we're going to be in the studio recording.
Mm-hmm. I've got to say, the voice cast is absolutely awesome.
Thank you. Yes, I think we had a what I describe a magic alchemy in terms of it all came together really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last story that was on Volume 2 saw Dan Dare learn that the authorities on Earth had known about aliens for over a century.
Yes.
We'll be seeing any blowback from that in future stories, do you think?
Oh, I think we can safely say we will, yes. I mean, we've certainly mapped out a lot more in terms of other stories we want to tell. It's probably also fair to say that a lot of the stories in the original, in our Dan Dare audio series, are inspired, whilst they're inspired by the comic books, they are actually original stories. So, if you like, the basic wireframe of the Voyage to Venus is there. The way in which Richard Curti and Bev Doyle realised it is original to them. And now that we've set, we've got the Dan Dare family well and truly working very well, and that team, have really shining, if you like. There's many more adventures to happen, provided these first two volumes are successful with the listeners, because we still have to fund it somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always going to be the problem. I actually have that problem, funding a website and a podcast.
Yeah.
So from that small prize.
So magnify the problems that you have with that, but trying to fund an ongoing radio or TV series.
Yeah, I don't even want to imagine it, because I kind of like worry. Oh, where am I going to find £200 every 6 months? Which is sort of like small fries.
I kind of like that problem. It's all relative at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think in terms of if you're running a website, you just got to want to carry on doing it, and you find the money from somewhere. You kind of like rob Peter to pay Paul.
Well, I do a lot of indie films, and trust me, indie films don't tend to make very much money unless you really luck out and you've got a stunning film and it becomes a global hit. You do a lot of this stuff because it's a passion, and I have a passion for telling stories. So it doesn't matter what genre it is. If I'm engaged with that story, and I have I have a group of people that want to work with me to try and realise it, that's what drives us at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. In your last Dan Dare story, you introduced the character of Cadet Flamer, and I really liked him. He was kind of like he struck me as a younger version of Dan Dare, only sort of like a lot more aware of technology and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering if we're going to see him back.
Yeah, I think he's more of a geek version of Dan Dare. Mm-hmm. We had actually introduced Flamer in the second episode of the first volume in Red Moon Mystery. So the very young cadet at the beginning who's quizzing Dan Dare when he's trying to do the sort of PR spin to the various schools as a hologram. He recognises that he's a hologram. And that was actually played by my eldest son, Ryan, as it happens. Nothing like a bit of nepotism in casting. But Noof plays the older version. And yes, in answer to your question, the Flamer would reappear. What's quite interesting about Flamer Spry or Cadet Flamer Spry as a character is that a lot of people found him quite annoying in the original comic strips. So it's nice to know that you didn't find him annoying.
I didn't actually, but I think that's because like many, I tolerated Wesley Crusher all the way through Star Trek: The Next Generation. So, in comparison to that, Cadet Flame is a lightweight.
Good point. Yeah. Yes. Crusher. I forgot about Crusher. Yeah, could be quite irritating.
Well, it was just irritating because he saved the ship every week.
Yeah, it's a bit of a smart ass, wasn't it?
Oh, right, yeah. That was I just thought he was just a really, really good character, and I kind of like the way that he was sort of like he kind of has that persona about him that all young men have, in that they know it all.
Yeah, but it's his enthusiasm and his thirst for knowledge. He just gets a bit carried away with it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I liked. Aside from Dan Dare, what other projects are B7 working on that you could maybe talk to us about?
Oh, goodness. Well, we're hoping to do more Asimov. We did iRobot at the beginning of the year for Radio 4, and that went down very well. It was very popular. We talk about taking creative liberties. I mean, we took quite a few of that, but I still stand by that being, in terms of a dramatisation of the original novel, I don't know of a dramatisation that has been done that is as true to the original novel. But what was extraordinary about that was, in reading the book that Isaac Asimov originally wrote back in the 1940s, 1950s, what he wrote was incredibly prophetic. So a lot of what we were writing about was his predictions, and his predictions were very much now. Some of his predictions were a bit outlandish, but I love Asimov's work, and I love, so we've worked a lot with doing Asimov and Ray Bradbury's work as well. And then something completely different. We're working at the moment on a TV series, which will hopefully happen, which is set before the outbreak of the Second World War, a romantic series. We call it a romantic version called The Midwife. But to tell you any more would be giving the game away. But that's a particular project I'm very excited about. And then we've got a what I call my Sword and Sandals epic for radio.
Cool.
So that's something else entirely different, not sci-fi at all, but based on some well-known historical text.
So something kind of similar to Ben-Hur.
Yeah, I kind of describe it as Gladiator meets West Wing. There you go.
Oh, that sounds intriguing. Sort of like, I'm trying to imagine the Gladiator mixed up with the West Wing now in my head. All right.
Yeah. So were my writers when I told them that was how we were actually going to approach it. But we've delivered the pilot script now, and we've delivered the series Bible. So we're just waiting for to know whether we're going to be commissioned. But it's looking promising. But yeah, so I mean, again, this is what I love about what we do: the variety of the stories that we can tell, and the settings and genre is wonderful.
Aside from Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles and the stuff that you've been doing with Asimov, are there any other classic science fiction writers that you'd love to adapt?
Oh, I suppose, yeah. Arthur C. Clarke. I'd love to do his version of 2001, but that's all tied up in a bit of a quagmire of rights. I'd love to do Dune, but I see that Legendary Films are about to do. Mm-hmm. I think it's a new film, which hopefully this time they get it right. Well, David Lynch's version was interesting but quite flawed. But I also think radio lends itself brilliantly to doing things like Dune or 2001. So those are a few.
Yeah, I mean the Dune, the sound of desert winds and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think because Frank Herbert was such a wonderful world builder, there's such wonderful characters. It's a great political intrigue. It's there's a real operatic quality to the storytelling, which would lend itself brilliantly to being adapted for radio. But as I say, at the moment, whilst Legendary are doing what they're doing, I know that's not going to be an option, but. If things change, that would certainly be probably at the top of my list of projects I'd like to do.
Well, thanks so much for your time and best of luck with Dan Dare and all these other projects. I hope that that you manage to actually make a lot of them happen.
Well, thank you, Ian. It's been a pleasure chatting to you. I hope I haven't babbled away too much.
Oh no, I've really enjoyed it. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Great stuff. All right, well, good luck with Sci-Fi Pulse. Keep going.
Here at SFP Now, I think we're pretty sure we got our priorities straight.
And that was our interview with Andrew Mark Sewell. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope there's a lot of Dan Dare fans out there listening. I really enjoyed speaking with Andrew, because I've got an appreciation of hope and stuff like that, as does my co-host for the TV segment, Raissa. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Okay. Well, did you enjoyed the Dan Dare series? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm new to the Dan Dare series. I came into it as with Terrahawks. I came into Dan Dare cold, and it was thematically and tonally exactly what I was looking for, and I absolutely loved it. And between the two series that exist so far, they've taken the characters in some really interesting directions.
It's quite funny because I was actually chatting with Andrew briefly before we actually recorded the interview, and we were swapping notes. And he's only a few years older than me, so he actually remembers when the BBC would show the Flash Gordon movie serials in the morning during the summer holidays. Because I had fond memories of my brother, getting me up out of bed in the morning about something like 7 a.m, which is, I wouldn't dream of getting up out of bed out that hour for Flash Gordon these days, because, we got VCRs and stuff like that, but we didn't have it back then. So, but I just remember watching those and stuff like that, and that was my first exposure to pulp, and I chatted with Andrew briefly about that, and we really I think we had a really good conversation. So let's get back onto the subject at hand, TV talk, and we've had one season finale so far, which is Once Upon a Time.
Yes, and I'm going to keep this brief because it would take up the entire podcast, but I'm not happy. I've sat through 6 seasons of Once Upon a Time. The show should have ended with the mid-season finale 2.5 years ago called Going Home. At the end of it, Rumpelstiltskin actually died heroically, saving everyone. And then they brought him back. And then everything after that has not made any sense at all. And then on top of that, they recycled. They kept recycling plot elements so that they were telling versions of the same stories over and over again. And the effect was that it was repetitive, and the characters didn't get to benefit from their own character growth because they kept getting regressed, and it was not good. It was not good.
I'm inclined to agree to a point. I mean, I thought season 3 was a lot of fun because you had the Frozen sort of thing.
That was season 4, but yeah, the Frozen wasn't too bad. In fact, they actually got a reindeer, in to play Sven was a added point. But yeah.
Yeah, but I think the mistake that they probably made is they could have tethered off, at a point when Rumpelstiltskin heroically dies. They could have tethered off and gone in a completely different direction and just brought in a whole different set of fairy tale characters to be the main cast instead of sort of like having them come in sort of like cameo roles, or like we had that whole thing with that Scottish character. What's she called now? The brave Merida. They could have done something with that, and they could have done something with Aladdin as opposed to sort of like trying to mash it all together.
Yeah. Or Nemo for that matter, because I gotta say, Farhan Tahir did an absolutely brilliant job as Nemo. I had issues with the script, but I did not have issues with him.
Well, Farhan Tahir is an awesome actor anyway. I mean, we've actually had him on this podcast, believe it or not.
Oh yes, I remember.
The only reason I mentioned that I was actually going through our back catalogue today, and since we moved things back over to Libsyn from Blog Talk Radio, believe it or not, we did that in May of 2013, and it's just flew by.
Oh wow!
It's just flown by. But once upon a time, I felt tonight was this was the finale. They just tagged a bit on the end and a bit at the beginning to sort of like try and sort of like make it seem like it's doing something different for the next season. And to be honest, I'm not buying it. I'm absolutely with you here. I'm absolutely not buying it because the way that it ended was great.
Yeah.
They all the characters had their happily ever afters. They even had the music beats and they had overlong happily ever afters, almost as if they weren't expecting to be picked up for another season.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in light of Time After Time being cancelled, I don't think they deserve to be picked up for another season.
No.
Because it's blocking other potential shows and stuff like that with that space. Although they'd argue that before Once Upon a Time came along, the Sunday night spot wasn't really a very good space for a primetime show.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of fairy tales for them to mine.
Yeah.
They could do a long form version of Little Red Riding Hood or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a fairy tale anthology series.
Which would have probably been better.
Probably would have been. Or they could sort of like bring the entire cast of Tenth Kingdom back and make that.
That would be good, actually.
Yeah, that would be awesome, because at least that for a mini-series, I don't know if they were planning to do a series of it, but, that was so well made, really well acted, well written, and, if you watch that and you watch an episode of Once Upon a Time, after it really shows up the flaws in Once Upon a Time when you watch Tenth Kingdom.
It does.
It really does. So season 7, and we've already sort of like heard about various cast members leaving, such as Belle.
Yeah, the only regulars who are staying are Robert Carlyle as Rumpelstiltskin, Lana Parrilla as Regina, and Helen O'Donoghue as Hook.
So that's it?
That's it.
So,
everybody else, if they come back, is going to be recurring or guest.
Wow. So it's basically, if it hasn't tanked already in ratings this year, it's really going to tank in the ratings next year.
It's, yeah.
So, but, sort of like, Nana Premier, I'm glad she's coming back. If I decide to watch it next year, which I don't know whether I will, to be honest.
I might, in the event they have, an extra special guest actor or a standalone storyline that I want to see, but I doubt I'm going to watch it week to week after this.
I'm actually surprised. Carlisle's coming back.
He's got issues. Brexit is going to screw with his funding, and he's trying to get a production shingle put together. Plus, he's got 3 kids to support, and he frankly just needs the money.
Brexit's going to mess with his funding for what?
Brexit provides, the EU provided a certain amount of funding for indie film products in the EU. So when Brexit goes through, Britain is going to lose the EU funding for their indie films and stuff.
That figures.
And given that so many productions are co-productions with multiple sources of funding, they really can't afford to. So Carlisle, given he's very indie film oriented and that he wants to open his own shingle, in addition to the fact that he's got 3 kids to support, really can't be turning down, once upon a time salary at this point. He's got issues.
Yeah, this Brexit stuff's really messing things up for everyone. I mean, it's really strange because the Brexiteers, as it are really, really optimistic about we're going to have a great country and this and that. That's not what I'm seeing.
No. It's not what I'm seeing from over here. And I'm over here, so
because without the EU, you can kiss goodbye to the British film industry.
Basically,
it's such as it is anyway, because it's sort of like it's not being in great shape at all. But a lot of these productions, like for weddings and stuff like that, you can kiss that sort of stuff goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason we have Doctor Who, which we'll be discussing, is because it is a BBC Worldwide, BBC America co-production. So
yeah, and that's the only reason that Doctor Who has so much running in it of late, and faster than speeding bullets storylines. In order to sort of like sell it to the American public. Whereas I'm old school. I preferred the old format.
I do too.
With the slower building storylines, where you got time to enjoy more character beats.
Yeah.
So we might go back to that in cardboard sets if the EU has anything to do with it. But, So, once upon a time, kind of a big thumbs down, really.
Yeah. Like I said, I might watch bits and pieces of it in passing, depending on various elements. But I'm not going to watch it week to week anymore. I don't have enough time or energy at this point.
Okay, well, nice little segue to Timeless. Cancelled, uncancelled.
Yes.
Yeah, it's almost as if NBC and the producers of the TV show invented a time machine and went back in time and uncancelled the show.
Yes. Yeah. And there are 2 points to bring up. One, thank you for uncanceling it, but just as a side note, the Constantine fans are getting on NBC's case for not doing the same for Constantine. Just FYI.
Yeah, I know, but that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago. I wouldn't mind if they just cancelled Constantine and renewed Timeless and they're both the same year sort of thing. But Constantine was 3 years ago, to be fair. If it had any chance of coming back, it would have come back that year.
Yeah.
I mean, not I'm berating the fans for wanting it, because I'd rather have Constantine back than Timeless, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
But I also enjoy Timeless, so
yes. Yeah.
It was kind of like a surprise. It's interesting as well because I think another thing that Timeless had going for it was the fact that it was Eric Kripke and Sean, what's his name now? Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan.
Yeah. Both those producers have quite a large fan following. Kripke for Supernatural and Ryan for the various things that he's done.
Yeah. There are some caveats. They're only bankrolling 10 episodes, and they'll probably either air it mid-season or summer.
Well, if they air it in mid-season, I'd rather it air in the summer, I think.
Yeah, it's more of a summer series. Frankly, I don't care how many episodes we get, provided they just don't end on a cliffhanger. because that was just rude. And at least this way they can finish it out, because if they know they have 10 episodes coming, they can pace it in such a way that they can finish it.
I mean, what they could do is they could pace it in such a way that they finish it on episode 9 and have a standalone adventure on episode 10.
That's a thought.
And that way they finish out one arc and they just have a standalone episode in episode 10. Whereas, if it gets cancelled, we won't mind because it's a standalone adventure. If it doesn't get cancelled, it's sort of like it kind of leaves the door open for them to come back.
Yeah.
So
if they do come back, they'll just keep doing 10 episodes, because I doubt they can bankroll a whole season, a whole 22 episode season, because that was the problem. They had to create all these time periods, every week, and they literally just didn't have the money relative to the ratings.
I think another problem was also the time it was actually being shown. It was being shown at 10 p.m, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they meant it as a family show, and they said that the demo research that they had done showed that it was a family show, and that they planned to keep it that same tone for season 2. And
okay, well, it certainly feels like a family show when you watch it, and it works like that as well. I'm glad it's being given a second chance. Hopefully Constantine will get a second chance and join the Legends of Tomorrow next series.
That would be awesome.
In which, if that happens, Jeff can go on about how they completely and utterly ruin Constantine. Of course, for our listeners here, we're talking about Jeff over at Super Geeked Up. He does the DC Action Hour with Matt. He's always berating Legends of Tomorrow and blaming it for ruining the really good characters from Arrow and Flash and whatnot. So you'll give Jeff something else to complain about. And I'm all for that, because I just love teasing the guy. But is that Constantine series still happening on Seed?
Yeah, it is. It'll be airing later this year sometime.
Cool. Well, I'll be keeping my eye out for that. We still not got the Vixen series here in the UK.
Although they've talked about expanding the Vixen series that was aired by adding an additional 15 minutes for transitional material, and then marketing it as a straight to DVD DC movie, which I'm all for.
Well, I'm all for it, because that means that us guys in the UK that haven't been able to get it without torrenting it, we'll have a chance to see it. Huh?
Yes, yeah.
Although it's a different Vixen to the one that's in the Legends, right?
Yeah, Legends features her grandmother, who was a member of the JSA, and she's awesome. I like both Vixens very much. The Vixen that we get originally, the one that appeared on Arrow, is the granddaughter, Mari McCabe. Mm-hmm. And she's, the grandmother, Amaya, is not a canon character. She was invented for the CW/DCU universe and Legends, because Megalyn EK, who plays Mari McCabe, wasn't available, and they really wanted Vixen on Legends. But Mari McCabe, who's played by Megalyn EK, is featured in the animated universe when she has time, and she's done one screen appearance on Arrow to tie it in live action, and she was very enjoyable.
Yeah, that was the one in season 3, was it?
4.
Yeah, season 4. She helped him come up with a way of fighting
Damien Dark.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, so I vaguely remember that season. It's very vague. So we've done Timeless. Now it's time for Doctor Who.
Yes, I think this was the best episode of the season so far, and one of Capaldi's best in general. It's called Oxygen.
Yeah, I think Dominic will agree with you there. He reviewed it, and he's just started getting a bit of feedback on his reviews from other people. So he's getting his reviews are getting out there. And he got a nice comment from a lady that was talking about the blindness element and the socio-political comment that was made in the show about capitalism.
Yes.
But it's going to lead in, and we're going to have a bit of Missy next week.
Yes, which means she's not the one in the vault, which means the Master in the vault is the Sim regeneration. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the Master though.
That's an idea.
I've got a feeling Clara might be in there as well. Like in your post, it's just a good feeling.
Yeah, the only reason I included Clara is because it's his final season, and I realized as I was writing that up that because it's his final season. The final seasons, at least in the modern era in particular, tend to be capstone seasons where all of the elements that make that doctor are brought back somehow. So Clara was such a big part of Capaldi's era that they're going to have to tie her in somehow.
You know what I think they should do? She dies at the end.
She's going to have to.
They've got to do that.
Yeah, because her situation when they parted was so specifically what it was that she can't just wander around forever. There's got to be consequences.
Yeah. You know who they should bring back?
Who?
The Doctor's daughter, but a different regeneration of her.
That would be cool.
You know,
that would be cool.
Because we've only seen her once, and it just seems like a waste.
It is.
You know, may have been in. It was in the tail end of the Russell T Davies era, wasn't it? It was
yes.
His final season before the specials.
Yes, and played by
Georgina Moffat.
Georgia Moffat, who's Peter Davison's daughter and Tennant's eventual wife. They married.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, you know, he was dating Sophia Myles before that.
Yes.
He likes his blondes, doesn't he?
He does. Bless.
I thought it was a really good episode. I mean, I think the season's been pretty good so far. I mean, I quite enjoyed the haunted house one.
That was lovely. As I said, David Suchet was spot on. The special effects were marvelous. The story was well thought out. I thought the makeup on his mother turning into a tree was marvelous. That was not CGI. That was a woman in practical effects makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really well done. I think they did it in part because of Suchet, because Suchet talked in an interview about the fact that he was the pre-green screen generation and he had issues with, adapting to the green screen and having to do that. He's done it, but he struggles with it because it's not his generation that, is familiar with that. And so I think they made his mother, a physical person in makeup in part because they didn't want him to just have to interact straight with CGI. They wanted him to be able to have a person to actually grab onto and interact with in the course of those scenes for his performance. So, that was very helpful.
David Suchet, though, bringing that. I mean,
he's awesome. He's awesome.
I think he did Poirot for years.
Poirot.
I can never say that.
Yeah, it took them 25 years, and he starred in all of them.
Yeah. And he also played the bad guy in sort of like I can't remember it now. The Iron Eagle. He was a bad guy in the first Iron Eagle movie.
That's cool.
It's just quite funny. It's like, if he was in here in the room, he would probably curse me for bringing that up because it's such a cheesy 80s movie.
Oh,
it's like it's like the cheesiest of 80s movies, but it's one of my favourite 80s movies. It's like, if I'm having a bad day, I'll just stick that movie on because it's just so far-fetched. It's just and it's also because of Lou Gossett Jr. isn't it as well?
Yeah.
But I didn't realise it was David Suchet that was a bad guy in that until the other day, and I thought, bloody hell, that's David Suchet.
Suchet. Yeah.
That boy's got it around. But yeah, that was a good episode. I'm kind of enjoying the series more now that I'm not reviewing them.
I can see that. I can see that.
Because it just allows me to just relax and watch it and not be so goddamn analytical about it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad that Dominic's enjoying doing the reviews, because I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying it because when they did something that wasn't particularly right, I had to call it.
Yes.
And so far from what I've seen of Dominic's reviews, he's been doing the same.
Yeah.
If we see something that there's a problem with it, we'll call it.
Yeah, and I do the same too.
But yeah, it was an enjoyable episode. Is there anything else that we can discuss? Because there's been news about a new Inhuman series.
Oh yes,
and they're casting that.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the Inhuman series. In part because I just want to. Yoan Rayon is going to be playing the brother Maximus, is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with the Inhumans characters. This is going to be kind of my introduction to them. I saw them briefly years ago when they were featured on the Fantastic Four animated series. That's about it.
Yeah, we've seen them featured a little bit on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but not to the same extent.
No, not the royal family, not these specific characters. Although they did say that if they could find a logical place, they would tie the two continuities together. So that remains to be seen.
But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that. And there's another sort of like project, isn't there, with DC that's happening, another TV show.
Oh,
project.
Black Lightning. Yes.
Yeah, that one. That's I'm just gonna keep an open mind about that one.
Yeah, what I've heard is they're not planning to tie that into the continuity of the other shows, which is a mixed blessing. Because on the one hand, that could backfire on them, but on the other hand, if they do tie it in, they'll have too many crossover characters. So I mean, it depends on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, I'm kind of looking forward to that, and obviously, it's actually a good time for television right now because we've got American Gods on at the moment, which is doing great guns.
Yeah, it's a wonderful series.
I've just got the screeners for the for episode 5 through 8.
Oh, so you're gonna get the whole series? Awesome for you.
I'm gonna be sort of like watching those over next week and writing the recaps, monsters and critics. So they I just got the email off Stars today letting me know that it's that they're now in the screening room.
And I was pleased to read that the couple introduced in last night's episode would actually be featured in an ongoing capacity, because in the book they're only featured in that one scene. So yeah.
Oh, last night's was episode 3 for you guys, right?
Yes. The one with the gin.
I just loved the bank job.
The bank job was exquisite, and it reads even better in the book.
It's just so like, the thing is, you can actually see people actually falling for that.
Yes.
If they see someone dressed in a suit that's got sort of like some level of authority to it, you can actually see certain types of people falling for that trick and giving their PIN number away. I just thought, bloody hell, this is genius, because sort of like, you don't even need to, you could probably do it without actually having to call in the security, without having to deal with the security. And you'd probably get away with it too, because it's sort of like it's a trick that I don't think they'd actually think of. We've got to credit Neil Gaiman for being, somewhat of a genius here. If ever he wants an alternative career as a bank robber, he's got it sorted.
What I love about Gaiman is that he takes Moffat's ability to highlight the mundane within the fantastical and dials it up to 11. And and American Gods is an absolute masterpiece. It's really long, but it's an absolute masterpiece. And he demonstrates everything that makes him a really good writer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching these next 2 episodes. Another show that I've been watching recently, and I never thought I'd enjoy it, but I did, is I've been watching 12 Monkeys. And, based on, I've not seen the film, but the film looks a bit dark and bleak to me.
It was, and I felt like I had done it, and I wasn't interested in the series, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I'm kind of enjoying it because they're going back and forth through time, and they're dealing with paradoxes and stuff like that. We've got this great character in it called Jennifer Goines, and she's sort of like a mental patient. She's actually one of these fixed points in time sort of things. She's one of these fixed characters. She's what you call a prime, in terms of the time travel thing. Whereas if she's killed off or whatever, it could create a huge paradox and stuff like that. But the actress who's playing it is absolutely fantastic. And I was watching the series 2 finale, and she's just about going to battle with the 12 monkeys, with the army of the 12 monkeys at the end of the season 2 finale, and she's quoting from Independence Day.
Oh God!
And it's just so brilliant. It's so funny, because she's quoting from Independence Day. There's all these other pop cultural references that she's slipping in there, and she's not even a main. She's not like one of the main characters. She's kind of one of the main recurring characters, isn't it? She's just brilliant. So I've got all 12 episodes of the season 3 of that to watch as well, which I'm doing for Monsters and Critics. So I'll be starting that tomorrow. So I'm going to be 12 monkeyed out by the week's out. But yeah, I've been enjoying that show, and I was actually quite surprised because I remember it coming out, and I remember thinking, no, this isn't for me. It's too dark, and so like it's too depressing. And at that point in time, I just had my fill of depressing TV shows. Because we've had so many of them.
Yeah, for some reason they equate depressing with good, and it doesn't dawn on them that lighter fare can also be good.
Yeah, but I think we're probably going to get a lot of more lighter fare as well of late, because I think things are actually going to turn on their axis, because we've got you guys have got Trump, we've got the Wicked Witch Theresa May and Brexit. So I think the entertainment industry will probably sort of like turn to sort of like showing more lighter fare, to sort of like to take our minds off, to counterbalance it, because that's what usually happens. If you notice during the Reagan era and George W. Bush back in the in the 80s and 90s, you had more pulpy lighter characters.
That's true.
And then when the Democrats got in, you started having all this darkness and destruction. So I think it's sort of like, I think it's that thing of opposites attract. If you have sort of like right wing dogmatic politicians in office, you usually have sort of like very very sort of like gung ho heroic night fare for entertainment. And if you have sort of like left leaning politicians in office, you get all this depressing stuff. I think that's the way it goes. There's definitely a pattern there. And on that note, because I want to end on a positive note, that's the end of this episode of SFP Now. So I'd like to thank Raissa for joining me, and our special guest Andrew Mark Sewell earlier for coming on the show. We're going to be taking a little break. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, hopefully, with more interviews, or we might just do a TV talk show, because we've got all the new announcements coming of new TV shows that are due out. So what do you think, Reese? It's maybe an idea to do a show looking at some of the new TV shows when we get more, when we get some of the trailers from them off the upfronts and whatnot.
Yes, that'll work. That'll work.
So we'll do that maybe.
Yes.
And if I manage to get another interview sorted by then, we can slip that in as well.
Cool.
Okay, well that's it for now. Thanks for listening.